Go.
Hello, everyone. Wish you all a very good afternoon. Welcome to yet another podcast by D Life. Today, we'll be talking on fatty liver with our in house expert, Arun Kumar. Before we get into today's topic, I'd like to share some really exciting news about D Life. You will be getting to hear quite a bit more about it in the coming days, but let me just give you a preview. Recently, D Life was presented with a prestigious award, the Icons of India Award, by the famous Outlook Group. Anup recently had met with Outlook and he had a fantastic time getting recognized. D Life is now recognized as the only award winning low carb platform in India. So let's all wish Anup a really, really hearty congratulations on this fantastic recognition. You can hear more about this or read more about this in the link that we'll be sharing, and you will be seeing a bit more about this in the coming days. So today's presentation, we'll move on to that. It's about fatty liver. Now, before I even get on to the topic today, let me just give you a brief introduction about D Life. Like I said, D Life is one of the only low carb platforms in India. We've had around 250 plus success stories of people reversing a lot of metabolic disorders with diabetes, obesity, hypertension, PCOD, and including fatty liver. So you could check out the DLife platform at www.dlife.in. You'll have a lot of suggestions, you'll have a lot of information around metabolic diseases, you'll have a lot of actionable items, and you have a whole host of expert plus experienced community to help you out with your journey. Um, Another disclaimer is while we're talking about fatty liver, while we're talking about many other programs, many other issues or metabolic problems here, we'd like to share a disclaimer saying that none of this constitutes medical advice. They are recommendations and methodologies that you can adopt. If you have a serious metabolic condition, it is advisable to always take the inputs of your doctor and take medication before following or reaching out to one of us. Before you start off your low carb journey, it is best to connect with any of the low carb experts and low carb nutritionists on our platform so that you can be better informed and have a more successful journey. About me, my name is Anjali, and I'm a low carb nutritionist who has completed the diploma course by the D Life Forum. So, D Life also offers not just a community support, but also a full fledged educational system for anyone willing to learn, understand, and get certified in the low carb nutrition. Okay, so moving on, what today we will be talking about, like I said, is fatty liver. Fatty liver, I think, is one of the biggest problems almost 90% of our population is suffering from, irrespective of whether they have a diabetic issue or they are obese or they have any other problem. This is something that almost all of us will be having, subtly. They wouldn't even be knowing about it. Many people don't even understand this, don't even know about it. But this is a very, very critical problem. And why is it critical or why is it important to know about it? Arun will help us understand. Arun is an expert. He has a pharmaceutical background and he's also an expert on low carb. And he'll help us understand what fatty liver is all about. How do we identify whether one has fatty liver and what can be done to reduce or reverse it, and what can be the issues that can come up when someone has fatty liver. So over to Arun. Welcome, Arun, to yet another podcast. We are waiting to hear from you about your expert opinion and knowledge on fatty liver today.
Thank you, Anjali. To start with, because Anjali has given all the introductions, so I'm not going in details of those. But to start with the session, today is the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is otherwise also known as NFLD. NFLD is the condition when excessive fat built up within the liver. Liver, when excessive fat built into the liver, this situation is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Why non-alcoholic? Because there is no secondary cause. There is no alcohol abuse or alcohol or any medication or any other secondary reason, but there is a fat built up within the region, within the liver. That is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Actually, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is very common. As Anjali said, it is very common, and in Indian context, almost 90% of the obese people are having the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The another part is that when these people will go for the liver function test, there may be chances that their liver enzymes, transminase and other enzymes will show normal, value will be normal, but they have the fatty liver that can be detected only when they will go for the medical imaging. I mean, your ultrasonography or and all. So this is detected suddenly if you are going for the medical imaging for any other region or any other abdominal medical imaging, then doctor will notice that there is a fatty liver also. But till fatty liver is there is no change in the liver enzyme. So in the liver profile, it is difficult to detect unless until person is having the grade 2 or further prognosis of the fatty liver. That is all about the fatty liver. Now look at the symptoms. The very important thing that in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, most of the cases are asymptomatic. They will not have any symptoms. In some cases, there may be symptoms like discomfort or pain in the upper portion of the abdomen, particularly right hand side of the abdomen, or sometimes we feel fatigue, sometimes malaise, I mean fever and all, and there will be sometimes some liver dysfunction will noticed. Otherwise, the most of the people with the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease are symptomless, no symptom, asymptomatic. In some cases, very rare cases, skin may go pale if there is a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But if you are not properly diagnosed or if you are not taking of your diet and nutrition, this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, if you continue to insult your liver, this will further lead to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. In condition when liver is inflamed, there is not only fat built up inside the liver, but liver is inflamed also. Just to inform you that steatosis is the name when there is a fat inside the tissue or cells. It may be anywhere, but when it concerns to the liver, it is called non-alcoholic steatohepatitis because there is a fat and there is an inflammation on the liver. This non-alcoholic fat steatohepatitis is very dangerous. It may lead to further liver fibrosis or liver cirrhosis or liver failure or even the liver carcinoma. So that those conditions are the really dangerous and that needs immediate attention. So better if you detect or if you take care of your liver early before the fatty liver disease progresses. So that is what nutshell the definition of the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Just a minute. Here, one or two terms I would like to clarify that I have just told that NASH or non-alcoholic steatohepatitis is the condition when most of the liver tissues are not only fatty but also inflamed, and it may go under fibrosis. Fibrosis is a condition when tissues get fibrous tissue and those tissues are not having any function. Further, if you go further, the worst progression of the disease, then next is the liver cirrhosis. When scar tissue built up in the liver and most of the tissues are converted into the scar tissue, the scar tissue is functionless. So that portion of the liver will be not working, functionless, or you can say the defunct. So that is the liver cirrhosis. If it is not still diagnosed or have been treated properly, then it will lead to the liver carcinoma or liver failure, which we may have seen many of the cases. Then what are the reason for this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? The very, very important reason here it is the diabetes. Diabetes is the key reason for the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But here, one more thing I would like to mention, that it may be that you have a diabetes and you have a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But sometimes otherwise also, you have a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and which that goes to diabetes also. You will be diabetic also. So vice versa. The other risk factors are here is obesity. As I told you that 90% of the obese people are having non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Neither doctors notice properly nor the patient. Then next is the high blood pressure. Those who are having high blood pressure are in the risk group of the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Next is the high TG level, I mean triglyceride level, serum level, which indicates that you may have the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Then low HDL, high density lipoprotein. That is also the reason for the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Then hypothyroidism, that is the or underactive thyroid gland, is also the risk factor for the NFLD. Underactive pituitary gland also the risk factor for the pituitary gland. Also, if pituitary gland will be underactive, then it will also affect the thyroid function also. So that is also the risk factor for the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Then many of the patients are having continuous elevated transaminase. Transaminase are the enzymes of the liver. So if continue to be elevated and not treated, that may be the indication of the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Then old age. And one more important thing, the obstructive sleep apnea. Means if you are having the sleep is obstructive and in the sleep, sometimes you wake up and then again go for the sleep, some wake up, you again go for the sleep, and that may be the due to the obesity. Obesity is the one of the reason which is causing you the sleep apnea. If you have any of these medical condition, I just told, once again I repeat, that is diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, high TG level, low HDL level, and sorry, one more I just forget, PCOS, that is polycystic ovarian syndrome. That is or underactive thyroid gland, underactive pituitary gland, old age, continuously elevated transaminase, and obstructive sleep apnea. If you have any of three medical condition at least, then you are a very high risk for the NFLD. So take care of that. In many of the normal weight people also having this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now why? I have told you that obesity is the one of the positive reason for this cause for this NFLD. Then you will find that many of the normal weight people also are having the fatty liver disease. Why? Because due to the insulin resistance. If you are not going regularly, checking your fasting insulin, then you will not be able to know whether you are insulin resistant or not. So insulin resistance is the cause which give fatty liver disease even for the normal weight people. When you have a fatty liver disease, the insulin resistance will further increase. I will come later on why it is so. When there is a insulin resistance, that causing the decreased capacity of storing fat and reducing the mitochondrial function of the liver. So when there is a decreased function of the mitochondria and decreased capacity of liver to store fat, you will have the hepatic lipogenesis, which causing the fatty liver disease. I'm sorry, if you have any question, you can ask after that. Now, risk factors. What are the risk factors for the fatty liver disease? First is the family history of type 2 diabetes. Those who are having the family history of type 2 diabetes are having the in the risk group. Then another very important thing that male is having the twice as high risk as the compared to women. Women is just half of the risk of the men is having women because of the low estrogen level in the women. So they have the low risk for the fatty liver disease. That didn't mean that women can't have the fatty liver disease. Second is the diet. Overeating is the very important for obesity and causing this fatty liver disease. Now, those who are taking high amount of omega-6 fatty acid, that or fructose, these are the having very important role in disease progression and causing the fatty liver disease. This, if you have a NFLD or fatty liver disease, if you continue to take omega-6 fatty acid and fructose, this will bound to give you the non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And further, it will move to the fibrosis and liver cancers, liver failure, cirrhosis, and all. There is one more risk factor, that is choline deficiency. Choline is a chemical which is very protective for the liver. Then coming to the very important aspect of your food, that is fructose consumption. It is said, or I have also written to many times in the forum, that fructose causing the same damage to the liver which alcohol is causing. So fructose consumption causing the liver inflammation, and it is fructose consumption is also an addiction like a alcohol addiction. If you taking fructose, you are addicted to take fructose, your liver will process fructose and causing the fatty liver disease. High fructose consumption promotes fat accumulation in liver by stimulating lipogenesis. Fructokinase is the enzyme. Just a minute, there is a chat question. Anyway, I will take it afterwards. Fructokinase is the enzyme which processes the fructose inside the liver, and by processing the fructose inside the liver, it promotes the fat accumulation in the liver. It also stimulates lipogenesis, that is also called de novo lipogenesis, means more and more fat will be built up in the liver. Fructokinase rapidly metabolizes the fructose, which decreases the ATP also. ATP means adenosine triphosphate, that is the source of energy, and increases oxidative stress. When there is a decrease in the ATP, there is an increase in the oxidative stress too. This also impairs the liver protein synthesis and mitochondrial function. Because ATP, what mitochondria is doing, it is breaking down the ATP and releases the energy at the site of mitochondria. Mitochondria is a small organelle inside our cells. And if this happens, then liver protein synthesis will be also impaired. If liver protein synthesis will be impaired, then naturally the repairing of the liver cannot be taken place. Now, second reason for the fatty liver disease, which is very important, is insulin resistance. As I told just few minutes back, that IR promotes the accumulation of toxic fat in the liver. IR promotes the release of free fatty acid, that is FFA, and from adipose tissues into blood. What happens if you have an insulin resistance? So there is a more and more insulin level will go up in your blood. When there is a more insulin go up in the blood, I mean serum level of insulin will be high in the blood, it will make adipose tissue to release the free fatty acid in the blood. When free fatty acid will be released in the blood, it will be taken by the liver. So liver fat will be built up by fat. And this insulin resistance is causing not only this, but is causing the more and more free fatty acid concentration in the blood, which is taken by the liver. This normally what happens when we have a normal insulin level, so adipose tissue will release the free fatty acid slowly, and liver will also take slowly. So there will be no chance that liver fat will be built up inside the liver. But when there is insulin resistance, as you know, in those cases, the serum level of the insulin will be go high, and more free fatty acid will be released from the adipose tissue. This insulin also promotes the production of new free fatty acid in the liver. I mean, say not only it is liver is taking the free fatty acid from the blood, which is released by adipose tissue, but also insulin resistance causing the more production of the free fatty acid inside the liver. So liver fat built up in the liver will be high. This lipogenesis or fat, new fat cells will be born, produced by the liver, is called lipogenesis also, is stimulating by insulin. See, you have an insulin resistance. This insulin resistance is for all other organs, but except for the liver, where this insulin will work, and this will promote the more and more free fatty acid production inside the liver. That is the very important thing, because if you have insulin resistance, it will not happens to all other organs, but not for the liver. So there is a more free fatty acid production inside the liver. Then important point here to note that triglyceride and free fatty acid, that is FFA, are the major constituent of the liver fat. When we have a fatty liver disease, the two fat, that is TG and FFA, are major constituent. And important to note here, sir, that FFA derived from the carbohydrate, and as such as fructose and glucose. So that's why we are telling, if you have a fatty liver disease, don't take carbohydrate. Carbohydrate consumption should be low. So once NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, progresses to the NAS, that is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, and it further promotes to insulin resistance. So once you have a fatty liver disease, this may be due to the insulin resistance, but if you are continue to insult your liver, then liver will progress to the NAS, and when it progress to the NAS, it will further promote the insulin resistance. So this is a cycle, and this insulin resistance further adipose tissue will further release the free fatty acid in the blood. The most harmful cycle of insulin resistance, liver fat accumulation, and inflammation continue if it is not being checked. Adipose tissue dysfunction also decrease secretion of the adiponectin. Adiponectin is the hormone which is very, very helpful for sensitizing the insulin. I will come back to you, sir. Don't worry. I will come back to you on the session, last of the session. So adiponectin is the hormone which enhances the insulin sensitization, or rather another word, it reduces the insulin resistance. But this adipose tissue dysfunction due to the insulin resistance, this adiponectin production is also reduced. So this is a double problem. This adiponectin also improves liver fat metabolism and decreases lipogenesis in the liver and glucose production. So, you know, in the liver, glucose is being produced. So it is in the glucose production. So adiponectin is very useful hormone, but but it is due to the insulin resistance, the adiponectin production is reduced. This adiponectin is also having the anti-inflammatory action, which can reduce the inflammation of the liver. But since the level of adiponectin decreases, so that is also not possible. It is also having anti-fibrotic, means if your tissues are the fibrous, it will return back to the normal tissues. Next is the insulin resistance, also causing the skeletal muscles and skeletal muscles problem. That is also skeletal muscles also having the affected by the insulin resistance. Now, one more thing, that if you have a disturbed microbiota, I mean, you know that you have a lot of bacteria in your intestine. If that is microflora is disturbed, then it also having the role in increasing the fatty liver disease. These are the all risk factors for the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now come back to the treatment. I'm not, I'll just make you clear that I'm not going to suggest you any medicine or something like that which is treated for this NFLD or koi medicine have any. There is no medicine, such medicine available. The very important factor to control your fatty liver disease is reduce weight. If you are obese, you have to reduce weight. Now, how to reduce weight? We have discussed many times on the forum that you should be on the keto diet or very low carb diet. That will reduce your weight. Normally, it is found in the many of the clinical studies that 10 to 40% weight loss, 10% to 40% weight loss, causing the reduction, seeing the reduction of the fat accumulation in the liver. So that will be normalizing the fatty liver disease. The best combination is suggested by some of the studies, that is the diet and exercise. If your diet and exercise are combined properly, then there is a chance that your fatty liver disease will be reduced or you will be normal. It is also found in some studies that if you are on a very low carb diet, it will be make your liver normal and vibrant. Mediterranean diet also known to have shown to give good result in the fatty liver disease. I think most of the people here are known also Mediterranean diet. Keto diet also improves function of the liver. And there something to avoid is the fructose consumption. You must avoid fructose consumption and sugar consumption. You must avoid this if you have a fatty liver disease. Then there are some reports, though it is very contradictory, that vitamin E may be improve the fatty liver disease, but studies are not confirming. Some studies are saying that it's okay, that vitamin E can be given, but some studies are not giving any, not finding any benefit from the vitamin E. Though vitamin E is recommended in person which are diabetic also or having the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease also. Now comes to another one, that is the some herbs are known to help you in cases of the fatty liver disease. One of that is silymarin. Silymarin we have talked many times on forum also. Silymarin is just an extract of the milk thistle. Milk thistle is the product which is derived from the plant called Silybum, and in Europe these plants are available. And from that milk thistle, it is derived or extracted and make the silymarin. Silymarin is known to enhances the protein synthesis inside the liver. So if the protein synthesis will continue, your liver will be normal, function will be normal. Second is the turmeric or curcumin in the turmeric is known to reduce the inflammation of the liver. So that is also given, or you can give silymarin plus turmeric both in combination. That will work better. And some study also show that green tea also give relief in the fatty liver disease. Use of probiotic, prebiotic or symbiotic. Symbiotic is the combination of probiotic and prebiotic. Are also, if there is a fatty liver disease due to the microflora disturbance or due to reduction of the microflora of the intestine, then use of probiotic, prebiotic or symbiotic is effective and it will be improve the function of the liver. But final is that weight reduction is the most important thing in improving the fatty liver disease. So some reports study also show that exercise combined with the diet restrictions is very useful and helpful in controlling the fatty liver disease or making the liver normal. Some studies shows that aerobic exercise is better than the resistance exercise, but there is no confirm. So best to reduce your weight by food, by controlling your carbohydrate and combined with exercise. If you can have also silymarin, turmeric, then this will be controlled. There are some reports also say that omega-3 fatty acids may reduce the fatty liver and make the liver normal and vibrant. This also improve the serum lipid level, like when the lipid of the triglyceride will be improved if omega-3 fatty acid is taken. Report says that if you take 1 gram omega-3 fatty acid per day, because that is just a study and report, then it will show the reduction of the triglyceride serum level. And if there is a triglyceride reduction in serum level, then slowly liver will come back to the normalcy. I think this report also stated that if you have a fatty liver disease or due to the higher triglyceride serum condition, then it may be the cause and omega-3 fatty acid will be beneficial for that. Bariatric surgery also suggested by some of the study to control this fatty liver disease, but I am not very fan of the bariatric surgery. There are a lot of the side effects are there. So these are the all about the fatty liver disease. Now over to Anjali. Anjali, are you listening me?
Yes. How can I?
Yeah, it's over now. Anybody can ask questions because a lot of questions are coming back on this.
Yes. So let me see if I can unmute everybody.
There are some in chat box. There are some chats.
Yeah. There was one question, Arun, on asking how NAFLD can be diagnosed. Shashi's kind of indicated that it's more of an ultrasound test. So can you just give a little bit more?
Just a minute.
How can one diagnose it?
Actually, I told you that most of the cases are asymptomatic. You have a fatty liver disease and you don't know you have a fatty liver disease. So in that case, it is accidentally if you have any other problem, like doctor has asked you to go for the abdomen medical imaging. So in that case, this I think in that case, you are going for the medical imaging and suddenly doctor noticed that your liver is also inflamed. So then it will come to notice that you have a fatty liver disease. There are some reports they are showing. I don't know.
Yes. I think this is about one of the participants, Mr. Vivek.
But I told you,
yeah,
maybe that your transminase level will be elevated, but that is not necessary. If you have a fatty liver disease, your all transminase are normal, maybe normal. In many of the cases, I have found that there are normal cases, normal liver function test, all enzymes are normal, but even though there is a grade 2 fatty liver disease. Recently on forum, I have one, I just forget the name. On forum, it has been posted. His entire liver function test was normal, And though doctor has diagnosed by seeing the imaging, he has a grade 2 liver, fatty liver. I think I am not able to recall the name of the person, but
Hmm.
I remember recently, maybe 1 month back or something like this.
Yeah, Arun
Okay.
Kumar, Shashi here. Even
Yeah,
this was the case in my case.
yeah.
My liver function test was perfectly normal,
Mm.
which I took just before I got diagnosed. However, a year prior, I had done an ultrasonography, so there was a grade 1 fatty liver
Mm.
report which came out,
Yeah.
and I had, of course, the usual central obesity,
Mm.
which later got resolved on a low carb diet.
Correct.
So it's not necessary that our
Necessary.
liver enzymes could be dysregulated. We can be still having normal values, but having grade 1 fatty liver maybe.
Yeah. Maybe transminase may be elevated. If you have it, your transminase is elevated, then you can go for the liver, I mean, medical imaging, and you will find confirm that your fatty liver disease. But it is, you cannot depend on that, that transminase level will go high, then only liver, there will be a fatty liver disease. It is not confirmed. You cannot assure. So many of doctors are seeing the liver function test and doing okay certificate to patient. That is wrong. If you have a symptoms or if your patient is obese, then you, if you see, Sasikant, I just told you, no? Have you seen his picture? 5 years back picture, Sasi? Sasi, are you listening me?
Ah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Sasi, I have seen his picture 5 years back. I think 2015 or something like that. Sasi was quite, I mean, obese person, not obese, but overweight person. So in that case, doctor should give, recommend to patient that he should go for the liver imaging test. I mean, USG should be done so that he should confirm. We nahi hai, तो it's all right, na. But if there is, then he can be diagnosed earlier and treatment can be started. But of course, if there is a rise in the any of the liver enzyme, particularly ALT, AST, many of times AST may be elevated, but that is not a clear-cut indication of the liver, fatty liver disease. But ALT, GGT, and if the protein is also low, I mean albumin or globulin is low, serum protein is low, then you can think that some problem with the liver. Then you can send patient for the USG. USG will certainly confirm that whether there is a fatty liver, if there is a fatty liver, which grade of fatty liver, you can confirm that. Okay, Anjali?
Yeah. So, Arun, if you see, a lot of people have this toffee kind of a body, meaning they're pretty thin as a structure, they're thin, but they have a little bit of abdominal fat. So,
Tummy.
yeah. And if you see, even from a weight basis, they're pretty much in ideal weight situations only. They're not
Oh,
very
rest.
fat or
See,
over.
yeah, you are correct. You are correct, Anjali. Most of the patients are having the central obesity that
Hmm.
we call central obesity. When tummy is large, but other parts are normal.
Hmm.
So tummy is large, that means that you can be 100% sure this man is having the fatty liver. Maybe it will not reflect in the liver function test.
Hmm.
So this man, but without even sending him for the this USG, you can ask him to go switch for the low carb diet, and you will find that though both will be corrected
Hmm.
within over 2 to 3 months. Both liver will also आ जाएगा and his tummy will be also normal.
Okay. And one more question, you had said that men have more chances of fatty liver than women.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing much like that. There are a lot of women, but on the contrary, women find it difficult to lose the stomach weight when compared to men.
No, that's correct. That's correct. Particularly if you see the women post-menopausal.
Hmm.
Post-menopausal is when there is a perimenopausal period,
Hmm.
maybe 40 years, 42 years, 44
Hmm.
years, varying.
Hmm.
So in after during the perimenopausal period, a lot of hormonal changes are happens in the body,
Hmm.
the woman, and that affects the. I told you now there is a link between the underactive pituitary gland, underactive thyroid, and this fatty liver disease.
Hmm.
When the hormonal changes are happens in the body, particularly in women, the estrogen level will reduce, progesterone level will reduce. In that case, in that time, there is a problem started. It started maybe, if you, I don't know whether you have noticed or not, many of the women having postmenopausal condition, they have the hypothyroid, underactive thyroid. Have you noticed? I have noticed. Even in forum, many of the persons are coming. You first you see that whether his TSH level is normal or not. It is abnormally high. That causing the fatty liver disease. But why men is having more, almost double risk compared to women? Because of the estrogen level. Men is, I mean, their body structure is up, they have a low estrogen level. Well, female, I mean, women are having the higher estrogen level during entire life. So that may be the reason the men are more prone to this fatty liver disease. In my view, there is another view in Indian context that men are going out more. They are doing taking hotel food and the food which is high with the omega-6 fatty acid. In my view, that is one of the also reasons. While most of the women, when they are inside the house, and naturally their food habit is whatever you cooked in the home, that she will taking. That may be the answer. But medically, it is estrogen level is low in the men, so that's why men are having the higher risk of this fatty liver disease.
And in case of postmenopausal women, let's say there has been some 7-8 years or so after they have finished their menopause. So does this condition of reducing fatty liver take more time because of changes in so much of hormones, or is it equal to a normal women? Let's say, for example, somebody is around 50, 55 and they are very obese, but they don't have a thyroid issue. They reached menopause some 8 years ago. So will the weight loss progression be slower when compared to other normal people?
Yeah, actually, I'm telling you that it is not necessary that in postmenopausal women they have a underactive thyroid. Their thyroid will be not active properly. It is not necessary. But what I tell you that it is most of the cases. But there are many cases where even after the postmenopausal, their thyroid will be normal. But in that case also, they will induce weight by various regions. There are a lot of other regions. High carb diet is one of the regions, but there are other regions also. So there is a progesterone and estrogen level imbalance is there. Till she is I mean, not having the menopause, their hormonal level are in balance. But when she is having the menopause, after that, the hormonal level will be disturbed. And this disturbance causing the accumulation of the fat in the body. So that is the region. And men are also having the same. I mean, men are having the low estrogen level, that also causing the accumulation of fat and accordingly, I mean, fatty liver disease. So in those cases, as you asked me that, particularly the ladies who are having 50, 55 years, 60 years, if she is obese, of course, the speed of recovery, speed of reducing the weight will be slow, but not impossible. That they will be also lose weight. If they will go for the, I mean, keto diet, they will also lose the weight. But only thing, they should restrict to the keto diet very strictly. And I have found many of the persons, they have reduced the weight.
So I think there is one question from Jasmeet saying how irregular liver function can lead to increase in estrogen level in women. Is it due to obesity which leads to more aromatase?
No, I think Jasmeet, I just make it clear. It is a body construction of the female, I mean, women. They have the, normally estrogen level is high compared to men. High means, it is higher means when you compare to men. Men is having low estrogen level. They have also estrogen, but lower than that. That may be the reason for, because estrogen level may be guiding. It is not clear how estrogen level control the fatty liver disease or stop the progression of the fatty liver disease. It is not clear, but it is assumed in the many of the studies that estrogen level may cause the control of the fatty liver disease, or lower estrogen level may enhances the cases of the fatty liver disease. That is may, but there is no clear cut. I mean, clear cut. I mean, action of pharmacokinetics. You can say that how estrogen level will control the fatty liver disease. But it is in a study. It has been shown, because what I have told you, it is collected from the different studies. Okay, Jasmeet, am I clear? Oh, she is mute. Okay. Any other questions, Anjali?
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, there's one more. Again, Jasmeet's question is, omega-3 also helps in liver disease, but in fatty liver case, we see that there is less bile production that helps absorb fat.
I told you that if in fatty liver disease, if there is a high serum triglyceride level, then omega-3 fatty acid will be certainly effective. It will reduce the high triglyceride level, and it will reduce the triglyceride level of the liver also. If it is fatty liver is due to some other reasons, I mean, if your high fructose consumption, high glucose consumption, high carbohydrate consumption, then omega-3 may not be that effective at that time. But in that case, if you have a high triglyceride, serum triglyceride level, low HDL level, then omega-3 fatty acid will be certainly a help. But that did not mean that this is the only, you give omega-3 fatty acid and fatty liver disease will be normal. No.
Okay.
Yes, Anjali?
Yeah. Jasmeet, maybe Jasmeet, if you're there, you could talk if you have any questions. Okay. Sure. Okay, I have one question, Arun.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm presuming, based on whatever you've said, that fasting obviously would help for reducing fatty liver.
Fasting, yes, there is a report. Recently, I was studying a report that is 5:2 diet. I mean, a week, take 5 days low carb diet and have 2 days fasting. Am I clear?
So 5 days of regular diet, high carb, low carb, or any diet, or regular calorie.
No, actually, I can send you the link of that study also. I was just 3-4 days back. I was going through that.
Okay.
That was the 5 days low carb diet and 2 days fasting, or maybe there are some reports that 5 days normal diet, which is, and 2 days fasting. But I don't believe that 5 days normal diet will be counteract the 2 days fasting. Better go for the 5 days low carb diet and 2 days fasting. So that is very, very successful in reducing the weight and in normalizing the liver.
Yeah. So I think that's what Anup is also saying. Like 2 days, I think what I have read mostly is that 5 days of eat your regular calories, but then I would say 5 days of low carb, but 2 days of either 48 hours of fasting, you're saying, Arun, or will it be less amount?
Yeah, no, actually, in that study which I was studying last week only, that was the 2 days fasting. Means if you have 5th day, you over your last meal of dinner, then from next day, 24 hours, 36 hours, and by evening of next day, I think you have to take your normal meal, I mean keto meal, whatever you are taking. But fasting, what we are in Indian context, we are fasting means 24-hour fasting we are considering. Dinner ke baad, whole day next day and whole night, and 3rd day in morning we will take breakfast. That is the fasting in our context.
If I may come in, Anjali.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, traditionally the 5-2 diet is basically for 5 days you are consuming your regular calories, and for 2 days your calories down to 20 to 25% of your regular intake. I'm forgetting the name of the doctor who has devised this, but this is the traditional 5-2 diet. And if you remember, I talked about Jenny Roll in my podcast. She was on low carb for maybe around 2 decades or so, doing very well. and then finally she has switched to 5-2.
Okay.
Now her observation has been that with 5-2 for 5 days she can tolerate a bit of a higher carbs as compared to the traditional 7-day low carb that we do.
Okay.
So for 5 days she is doing low carb traditional, and for 2 days her calorie intake is down to 20 to 25%.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Now if you look at it from a week's point of view, right, not day to day or meal to meal, it essentially means, for 2 days you're almost consuming no carb, or maybe if it is 100 grams and you're restricting to 20%, that means you're only taking 20 grams of carb for 2 days, right? So that 80 gram margin for a low carber, I'm not talking of keto.
Correct, correct.
For a low carber, that 80 gram margin, possibly it can be accommodated in the earlier 5 days.
Earlier. Okay.
But still we would say stick to what has been working with us, because that is a Western concept and we are strictly off by and for Indians. That's all.
Got it. But okay, so since we're there on this fasting thing, now over time, when let's say a typical or a most common fasting methodology that's adopted is the 16/8 everyday fasting, 16 hours of
intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting. Now, over time, does that kind of saturate the effect of weight loss or reducing the tummy weight or central obesity, or does it continue to help you lose weight? Meaning, is there a point where your body kind of says, okay, I know that you are using this cycle of 16 hours of non-eating, so let me just adapt to it, whatever you're doing, and then stay in homeostasis?
Actually, Anjali, I have posted a few days back, 3-4 days back on the forum. The title was Stall. Have you gone through that? They have mentioned, the author has mentioned why weight loss stalls after some time. You can even go through that. But here, what question you are asking, that if body is adapted to 16:8 intermittent fasting, I normally recommend those who are having the obesity or overweight that go for first extended fast for 2 days, then continue your 16:8 intermittent fasting for say about week or 10 days or 15 days, again go for the extended fast, then continue your intermittent fasting too with the low carb diet. Of course, there is no compromise in the carbohydrate here. Then the chances that he or she will lose weight fast, or gradually she will lose the weight, will not be any stall. But in my opinion, there is also combination of some exercise. Not the moderate exercise should be there. Then both will act fast. Patient will lose the weight, and naturally fatty liver will be also corrected. So always recommend your patient extended fast followed by intermittent fasting of 16:8, and then again after 10-15 days extended fast followed by this 16:8. This will work better, I think, instead of only 16:8 intermittent fasting.
Okay, got it. Let's see. Anyone else? Any questions, please?
Anjali, I have one more suggestion here. Just
Sure.
sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
I have also seen that 4 days fasting, one of the study I was doing, reading, 4 days fasting with VCO, virgin coconut oil, is actually inducing weight loss very fastly. 4 days continuous.
4 days continuous with only VCO, like a fat
VCO.
fasting only.
4 or 5 times a VCO, the 10 ml around VCO. So then I have seen that weight loss is very fast, and side by side, the person was diabetic also. His blood sugar was also reducing. But in that time, one important thing is that he or she continuously monitor her blood glucose on the glucometer.
Okay.
So, anytime anything can happen. So just check that there is no hypo. In that case, he or she should monitor the blood glucose by glucometer. That is important. But I have seen the result at that time.
Okay.
Anjali, one point.
Yeah.
When people read about fasting or watch YouTube, people try and what I'm trying to say is people watch too many YouTube videos. Okay, one is on fasting, one is on low carb, the other one is on supplements. Then they try and stitch their own diet. Okay. Now the problem is fasting. Yes, no doubt it is very good. But the moment you start fasting and you're on a sulfonylurea drug, God help you. And many even do not check the PPBS so frequently. Most of them you would find is they are going by FBS. And whereas we do not care about FBS, we only aggressively monitor PPBS.
Yes. Correct.
So
correct.
this warning or a disclaimer has to be put out very clearly. If you are on a sulfonylurea drug or any drug which is forcing excess of insulin in body, please don't fast blindly.
So this, when you're saying sulfonylurea, it's something like glimepiride and
Amaryl, glimepiride, and all these drugs. So better not do it without any supervision.
No, those who are taking this sulfonylurea drugs, I mean, he or she should not go for fast unless until supervised or there some medical or some persons who know this.
There are many factors involved. Let's say if somebody is taking glimepiride, but landing PPBS of 220. Okay, for them we'll say, okay, you fast, we'll see what happens. Now, if somebody is taking glimepiride and landing 120 and goes into fasting, these cases will definitely go into a fatal or a dangerous hypo.
Correct.
So all these minute things, it only comes with experience. If you watch 100 YouTube videos, spend 200 hours on YouTube and try stitch a diet or stitch a regimen, you are bound to fail.
Very true.
That is where, people like Arun Kumar, you, me, Shashi and everybody else, our experience comes into play. And what I say is, we've got 1000 man years of experience on dlife.in. 1000 man years.
Oh, yes.
Anup, I remember my experience.
Yes, sir.
About 4 years or 3 or 4 years back, I was at Calcutta and I was alone in my flat. There's a very small flat, and I don't know much about cooking. So I did this butter fast for third day I have to break. 3 days almost I did the butter fast, only butter and nothing, because I don't know to cooking. So butter and black coffee.
No, sir. What I'm saying is,
third day my blood sugar reached to my glucometer said so low, 40 and low. So that means glucometer could not read that what is my blood sugar. Immediately I rushed to nearby a lab. They tested and they come out that, okay, your sugar is level 42. So I have to break that and I have to start by putting food from hotels. But that was my experience, that if you having butter fast, instead of the just plain fast, butter fast or VCO fast, this will accelerate your, control of your blood sugar immediately.
Yeah, sure.
There you will have hypo.
Sure, Instagram pe I've seen Sean Baker posting blood sugar readings of below 60 also, and he's on a carnivore diet. So what I'm trying to say is, suddenly agar girta hai na,
yeah,
220 se wo agar 60 aa gaya, so he may feel that he'll faint.
Yes, correct. Got it. I think in case of Sean, I remember seeing that post also. It's a continuous thing, and he's obviously monitoring it. He's not doing it blindfoldedly, I say.
Yeah.
So since he's a proper carnivore and a doctor as well, so he's like properly monitoring. And
So
the
that's what I
guideline
said.
is we
Yeah,
can't
that's what-
simply blindly go into it. Correct.
Yeah, that's what I said. Monitor PPBS very aggressively, not aggressively, very aggressively if you are going for a fast initially. No, and you are on drugs, tapering drugs and fasting, all these things, it has to be monitored very aggressively.
Got it. Thank you, Anu. Now, if there are anyone else who's got a question, maybe we could post, or as usual, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, Anjali and Arun, just a minute.
Yes.
So Arun, as you just explained, that is something which is documented. It's a very old document, George Cahill. So that is a very original document which shows that, very low blood sugar on extended fasting, and the ketone levels are also higher. So what Arun was thriving was on actually ketone, very high ketone level. And since he did not have anything, insulin was low, and hence blood sugar was low. But there have been experiments where they have also, those were fat adapted. They have injected the person on, controlled dose of insulin, and where they found out that, gone even below this level of blood sugar which Arun had, and there were no symptoms of hypo on the patients. So they were thriving fully on ketones. So coming back to that fatty liver thing, and one of the other major cause world over is not only this omega-6 oil, junk food, but it's also major cause also fructose, which is not recognized very well, and this especially high fructose corn syrup, which is there in your sugar sweetened beverages, and maybe excess fruit consumption or fruit juice consumption, and excess sugar intake itself will lead to excess fructose intake. In fact, very interesting thing which is which I want to share. This is something which I always share in many of the podcasts also. This is just a minute. So this is one of the study which was carried out by public hospital, the municipal hospital called Nayar Hospital in Mumbai, and they have studied on the affluent population of Mumbai, that is South Mumbai, and this is what they have found. Almost, in 100 young school children, they have found that 62 of them suffer from fatty liver, and out of that 35 actually had what is called as fibrosis of liver, as you can see. 35 of 100 kids had fibrosis of liver, all aged between 11 to 15. So you can imagine this situation. Probably they are all taking this McDonald's burger, and then some free Coke, which comes large Coke. So this is how, the loving parents, they slowly poison their children. So this is just a case. I mean, this could be there anywhere. It is not only in Mumbai. It's there anywhere.
Yeah, it is in everywhere. Most of the cities.
And especially in the metro cities, maybe not in the small towns. Yeah, Anjali, you can carry on.
Yeah. So, Arun, question: since we're talking about fructose being one of the major causes for, and that being treated like alcohol or metabolized like alcohol, so what about fruit consumption? Fruit consumption for a normal person. What do you suggest? Not fruit juice, not artificial sugars or sweeteners. So when we're talking about fruits for normal people, what do you think would be ideal as consumption? Do you think that they can go up to?
No, Anjali, I think, see, for a normal person, if they will go for the normal consumption of fructose, I'm not talking about the fruits, because fructose varies from fruit to fruit. If you go for the normal consumption of fructose, then chances of fatty liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver for a normal person is low. If he is not obese, if not other medical condition is there, what the 8 medical condition I have down for you, then he can go for the normal food consumption. It should not be that going for the morning, then afternoon, then evening, and it should not be. And secondly, it should not be combined with the alcohol consumption also. Because I've seen the people taking afternoon fruits and in the night they are taking alcohol. So that is the double hit to your liver. So as much you can keep your liver healthy, liver will support you. See, problem is this, your liver is such a tissue, made of such a tissue, that unless until your liver is damaged to a great extent, there will be no symptoms and you won't feel any discomfort also. Liver will work properly. But after some time, after a certain extent, when liver will be damaged, first thing, that is liver cells cannot be regenerated if it is converted to scar. That means cirrhosis. Then we have to transplant your liver, and that is not very good thing. Many of the transplants are not successful also. So better you keep your liver vibrant, normal, natural. Do with the natural food. Fruits you can take. Say taking one apple or one guava, say, is something you can tolerate every day if you take, or some citrus.
I think guava is pretty low in carbs and
low in carb and low in fructose also.
Yes.
So guava is
low. What about watermelon and all of these other non-low carbs that we don't recommend those in the low carb diet when someone is following. But for somebody who's not metabolically having a problem, but other fruits, so like let's say a watermelon or a orange or apple or Mosambi and all of those, grapes and all.
Yeah, correct.
In moderation, it is okay. It wouldn't cause any issues.
See, people are not very aware of all this. They, if you go for the banana, if you go for the grapes, they are a high fructose contents. I know, I have said today morning, you know, I got a call from my daughter. She purchased about 7 kg of honey, and she was trying to convince me that honey is very healthy because it's natural. I told her that sugar is also healthy. It comes from the cane sugar. So 95% fructose is honey is that. So that is the way people are thinking that fruit is a natural. Na, what harm it will give us to me? But it is not correct. Even for diabetic persons, those who are diabetes, they should be very careful selecting the green vegetables because here also fructose contents vary. In some it is low, in some it is high. So you have to segregate and then take your green vegetables also. And fruits, of course, some fruits like guava is having low fructose. Some you can find out other fruits like your kiwi is having the low fructose, and some other fruits. I am not remembering the name here. But
we have most of our berries are pretty low. In
berries, strawberry, blueberry, blackberry, all are having very low fructose, and carb also very low. But you can finally you can select your fruits, and if you take, there is no problem. But if you continue to take, say your this grapes are having high fructose. Yeah. Many of these foods, peach and other things, so you should not go for that.
Okay, Anjali, can I add something to it?
Yes, please.
You know, there's a big difference between perception and science, right?
Very true.
As Arun sir said, you know, perception is honey is very healthy, but the science says it is loaded with fructose. Now, coming back to fruits, I just remember because apple is very often talked of. So I remember, you know, 100 grams of apple is got around 6 grams of fructose. Okay. Now, for an active person who is training daily, he can tolerate up to 50 g fructose. Okay. Active, not sedentary like us. Okay. And a diabetic should never go above 15 under any condition, even if it is a well-controlled diabetes. Okay. So this is the issue. Another issue is fructose. You know, I think scientifically Arun sir can explain, but once you take in fructose, there is a fall in ATP, right? And this cycle, this produces a lot of uric acid.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Tropicana is very healthy, Fruity is very healthy. People drink cans, you know, cans of it, and then they say, "Mera uric acid high hai, kya karu?" Ab aap unko bologe ki stop all these fruits, they will say, you're talking nonsense. Okay. That is the problem, you know. There is a difference between perception. Perception is millets are very healthy, right? But the fact is, Vivek showed that how healthy millets are. There are some doctors, you know, promoting in South millets and ragi and nachini and all that like mad.
When you don't have a metabolic symptom.
No. Problem is, how do you know you don't have a metabolic syndrome? Because you don't measure your fasting insulin.
Yeah.
So, and then again, I think the change or the shift is when you're eating too much of the millets, which is too much of carbohydrates, and you're cutting down on all the other vegetables and other, even plant protein for a vegetarian, when you're cutting down on your consumption and not having the right combination.
Plant protein, I think, Anjali, you know better, but plant protein, in my opinion, is having very low absorption.
I understand. I mean, from a scientific perspective, yes, Arun. I mean, we know that, you know, they're not very, the bioavailability is very low for plant protein. True.
But actually, if you take the high, legumes in high quantity, you will have a stomach problem because absorption is low. So naturally, it creates a problem in the gastric, GI tract.
Yes, very true.
Basically, plant protein are also accompanied by a lot of anti-nutrients. So this is the big issue. So while they may be claiming that it has so many grams, First of all, how much is it bioavailable? One. Second, how much are these anti-nutrients hampering the absorption is second. So
Yeah.
these are not discussed at all.
They will deliberately not discuss. Vegans will never discuss this.
Yeah, most of the vegans have no knowledge, so they blindly follow.
So that's what. Okay, any other question, Anjali?
Yes, yes. One last question. I say what when I was listening to you speaking, one of the things that comes into my mind is I mean, there's a medicine called Live 52, right?
D52,
Live
yeah.
52. No, that I think that's a supplement. I have not personally tried it, so no idea about it. But I hear a lot of people consuming that, and recently my mother also said ki I think I should start having Live 52. It's very good for the liver and all of that. And I'm sure because that's a supplement and that's OTC, there are a lot of people consuming that. So if you can kind of just shed some light on it, what is it? Can anyone just take it? Does it really help with supporting the liver health? Or even if it does, how does it do? And what's the best way to use it?
Anjali, I'm not very, not having any knowledge about the Ayurvedic drugs or Ayurvedic medicine. Leaf 52 contains many of the Ayurvedic ingredients which are supposed to improve the liver function. But how it improves the liver function, the Himalaya drug is also showing some of the clinical reports, studies. But I don't know how it works because there is no pharmacokinetics or pharmacodynamics of the drug, which I think Sasi is also knowing that I can't believe any drug which is I mean, working or not, unless until I know the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of the drug, how it works, how it goes, where it goes, and what are the side effects it will give. So that's why I don't recommend Leaf 50 to anybody. Silymarin, of course, I recommend because silymarin is the herb, which is a single ingredient herb, which is used by European community for, yeah, Anup Sen has posted this, used by the European community for 400 years. And there's a lot of studies on that. But unfortunately, Leaf 52, I have not seen, no, I mean, independent studies are not available.
Okay.
So let me just add something since I'm also from the same background. So Live 52 is something considered as magic. So people don't know how and why it works, but every specialty works. And I've seen even cardiologists prescribing Live 52. And general public thinks Live 52 is something magic. They don't see it as a supplement or something. They see it something as protecting the liver. They will take it for strength. And those who are alcoholics will definitely take in tons of Live 52 in the hope that it is going to protect their liver. So this is just one of the study which I just googled, and just some of the few ingredients which they mentioned here is.
Yeah.
I don't know how far, whether they are in therapeutic dose or what. However, it's a fast-selling one, and even I took Live 52 DS double strength for 1 year after I was diagnosed with fatty liver. So my doctor gave me Live 52 and vitamin E capsule, vitamin E 400 twice a day, and Live 52 DS double strength twice a day. So I took it for a year or so. So I don't know what is the consequence. I never tested, but once I came into low carb, my central obesity just went away. So though I didn't test later on, so it is assumed and presumed that my fatty liver is no more. So this is how it's a magic remedy. No one will be able to answer anything about this. Maybe Himalaya company can throw more light.
And the only one who can do it.
One thing, Anjali, it is a very old drug because when I started my career at that time, also Leaf 52 was very popular. Yeah. And when I left my career at that time, also Leaf 52 was very popular. It's a very old drug for industry. And second thing, Himalaya is promoting these Ayurvedic products or other Ayurvedic products also, like to each and every segment of doctors in the society. So they all are aware, and that's why they are prescribing. But even if you ask to any doctor who is prescribing Leaf 52, why you are prescribed this, doctor? You know how it works. What are the ingredients? What are the side effects? No doctor will tell you. Rather, in that case conditions, I have sufficient data study also that silymarin works better. I mean, silymarin is because they have studies the ingredient silymarin. So in that case, how it works, how it improves the protein synthesis in the liver. So these are there. But in that case, you can recommend to your patient that you can take silymarin Dosage varies from age and severity of the disease. It is
Okay.
from 70 milligram to 140 milligram per one tablet, and you can give Silymarin safely up to 600 milligram. There is no problem.
Okay. Okay.
So in that case, you can put that because there is some authentic reports are there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's check if there are any more. There are not many
If
other.
there are no report, no question, then we can conclude.
Yes, yes. So I was just checking. There are no more questions from anyone. So I think we can close the recording. Thank you so much, Arun. As usual, appreciate your expert insight into this and sharing all the information so we can help everyone out there and also improve our health. Thank you so much, Arun. Thank you, D Life, and hope to connect soon for another PC next week. I think we're having some fantastic uh, um experts, global experts out there. So please join us next week as well so you can get more insight around health, low carb, and all the other related information. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Vijay.